All right, welcome. My name is Geri from godislovetruthlife.com or godislovetruthfreedom.com because a life without freedom is a life not worth living. And today I have my amazing panel of wonderful guests, Darin, Jeff, and Curt, who I met through Mark Passio's How to Become the True Media course. And I want to make sure I plug Jeff's YouTube channel, Decentralizing Mind Control. Welcome, everyone. Hey. In our previous episode, Curt and I had talked a little bit about how we each got into the truth movement, but would love to hear from Darin and Jeff, and Curt, if you have anything else to add.
Not really. If people want to know, I went into fairly good detail about what woke me up on your podcast last week, so it's better to just hand it over to Darin and Jeff.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay. I lost video. It's kind of like frozen or lagging, but as long as you can hear me, that's fine.
Yeah, we can see you too.
Okay, yep. Great. So, I guess we could start with what woke me up.
Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate enough to have my mom at home with me until I was about 5 years old before my parents divorced. And I would say that in the formative years, my mom taught me how to read starting at age about 4.
Wow.
And and by age 5, kindergarten, I really didn't have any interest in reading children's books. We had an encyclopedia set at home, and since I knew the alphabet, I picked a letter like D for Darin, and I had her read things about dogs or dinosaurs. S for snake, and I liked looking at all the different colors and types of snakes, coral snakes, king snakes, cobras. And so I guess my mom introduced me to thirst for knowledge. So ended up reading a lot of the encyclopedia and the World Book yearbooks. And one of those things I like to do is also go to the library. We would get movies. My favorites at the time were the original Planet of the Apes movies. And I didn't know this at the time, but they ended up being really deep, about humanity, religion, government. And I'm just sitting there as a kid, just watching these dialogues, and I'm watching Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, and I'm watching the apes get electroshock and trauma-based mind control programming. And I'm watching Caesar say no, and eventually overthrow their masters. And I saw a lot of movies because I knew how to work the VCR, and when I was left unattended, I would pop movies in the VCR, and some of those ended up being like The Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome, the Mad Max movies. A lot of Star Wars. So I got introduced to those concepts. Now, as a teenager, I ended up getting robbed at gunpoint working at a pizza place. And a close brush with death like that made me think about, well, what if I didn't make it? Was my life, productive? What do I want out of it? Because everybody dies. So do I want to be caught unprepared in the future? Right. So at that point, I was against using all drugs and substances. But after that, it got me to researching near-death experiences, trauma, spirituality, and that led me into entheogens, hearing about Terence McKenna, the occult. I was into martial arts, grew up watching Bruce Lee movies, I started reading about Buddhism and Qigong, uh, took karate, and really got interested in the idea of the bodhisattva and how, as sentient beings, it is our job to help spread truth and light. And I quickly realized the system was bullshit and that we were just being programmed to be like worker drones on this tax plantation. And I was real into Star Trek, and I could see how our society was literally becoming like the Borg, just trying to assimilate stuff, but also control it and destroy individuality. Ended up having a nervous breakdown, which was diagnosed variously by different doctors. Some said paranoid schizophrenia, some said schizoaffective disorder, some said bipolar disorder, because I really was disturbed, but their definitions and treatments were incorrect. Although I understand why they would say that, because that's what they know. That's what they went to school for. And when you have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, right? So, but I really did experience like loss of sleep, mania, perceptual distortions. But a lot of that had to do with psycho-spiritual development and Kundalini symptoms. I mean, I had a lot of the Kundalini symptoms. Feelings of pressure on different chakras, especially the head, light, like seeing orbs, electronics malfunctioning, just heat and cold fluctuations, precognition. There were some things that I had a dream of, and then they happened exactly like that, like within a day or two. So it shook me. But I started to. So there's this hallucination, or this perceptual distortion that's common in psychotic disorders called thought broadcasting, where you think that things are relating to you. But what I was experiencing was really synchronicity. And Carl Jung talked about that. And I believe what happens is sometimes people start to realize synchronicity and apparently unrelated things seeming to coincide and correlate. And what happens is our brains, our minds are naturally wired to find patterns in things, right? Like in the clouds, patterns in the clouds, patterns anywhere. That's what our minds do. That we can abstract and we can try to find meaning in things that necessarily aren't apparent. And so I think that's what happens sometimes. For some reason or another, people get to a place where their brain starts to notice patterns, and we don't know how to integrate them or interpret them. And sometimes they are just cognitive noise, but sometimes they're real things, but we don't know how to take them. So we end up attributing like kind of arbitrary meanings to things. But I would always tell the doctors, like, no, I just need to get over this. I don't need medication. Every time I get medicated with an antipsychotic, you suppress this. It goes away for a while, but it's never resolved, and it's going to keep happening until you leave it alone. So, it was just on and off again, like on medications. And my family had no idea what was going on because, this quote unquote normal kid is suddenly talking about the occult. Oh, he's reading books about Thelema. Oh, he's talking about Freemasonry, and so by the time I was 21, I had been reading about the occult for years, and I tried like weed and mushrooms and stuff, but I ended up writing a letter to the Grand Lodge of Michigan for Freemasonry, and I told them I don't know any Masons, but I know that to be one, you need to ask one. And so I'm asking if you can put me in touch with somebody that I can meet and talk to. And I told them I had read about Rosicrucians and alchemists and the first Freemasons, and I read the Hiram Key, and I was familiar with the Magic Flute by Mozart. Went to see that at the Detroit Opera House, and they responded very positively and put me in touch with the local lodge. And then I met with them, and then filled out a petition, and they voted on it. And then I did my entered apprentice degree in 2009 in the fall. I think it was September. And it was cool, nothing too crazy. It just felt cool to be part of a club of people who I thought were like-minded. But then I ended up talking to one of the guys who was, I think, the senior warden at the time, who was going to be the worshipful master of the next year. And he kind of broke it down to me. He said, like, most people in here are not interested in the occult. They come here to just hang out with the guys. Most of them are retired, and they just want to come and hang out and shoot the shit, just relax. And so I did my fellowcraft degree in October next month, and then we were looking at scheduling my Master Mason degree for January, but it never ended up happening. I ran into an issue where I was living with some friends, and there was a domestic dispute going on, and it had resolved, but I wanted to get out of there. So I called one of the brothers from the lodge, and it was late at night, maybe 10, maybe even later, maybe 11 at night. And it was like right before Christmas, so it was dark and snowy. And I called him from my cell phone, and I said, "Hey, brother, I'm taking a walk down the sidewalk, and I know you live nearby, and I was just wondering if I could like crash on your couch or something for the night. There was this domestic dispute at my house, and I don't want to be there. My friend, and you know, just going off on her boyfriend and all this stuff." And he goes, "Well, if there's a domestic dispute, you should just call the police." And then he hung up. And I thought, wow, that's very typical for a retired sheriff's deputy, and so much for helping a brother out. So I really had nowhere to go. So I called a friend, and he ended up picking me up. This guy wasn't a Mason or anything. And I stayed at his apartment for a day or two. And at the time, I was on Social Security disability. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and check myself into a local psych ward and just tell them I need housing. And, I have a disability check. Will get me a place to stay. Well, I ended up calling getting in contact with my lodge from somebody's business card, and they came to visit me, and they asked me what was going on, and oh, are you taking medication? How's that going? And I told them, I said, look, guys, this medication is all bullshit. This is sinister alchemy. You got names like Abilify, Zyprexa, Prozac. I said these are all like neurolinguistic spells. All these things do is shut down your neocortex and your chakra systems. They screw up the pituitary hypothalamic and gonadal axis. They literally shut down your neuroendocrine system. And, did you know that the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry sponsored a lot of the research on the dopamine theory back in the late 70s?
Wow.
And the guy looked at me and he goes, "Well, you're not making much sense. We'll see you next week." And then they literally showed up with demit papers and had me sign them. And they said, "Well, it looks like you weren't fully honest with us when you submitted your application." And I'm like,
Wow.
"About what?" And they're like, "Oh, about your criminal record." And I said, "Yes, I was. I had one misdemeanor. I put that down, and we talked about it. You were there." And he's like, "Well, the story I read online was different from what you told me." And I said, "So you're gonna believe some hearsay online versus what I told you?" "Okay, here, give me the paper." I signed it. They threatened me with the Masonic trial if I didn't sign the demit papers. So, reading between the lines, I gathered that I was into the occult, which was problematic. I was not a bullshitter like some of them were, and therefore I really didn't belong in that particular lodge. And they told me, "Look, you're not a Mason anymore. The obligation to keep the secrets is there, but just forget about it." And I did, because it's the internal qualifications that make one a Mason. So honestly, there's nothing they can impart to you in a lodge that isn't pre-existing in nature. I mean,
So are they
there
right
have been
to this
Masonic
day?
writers that have said that.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have a question. Like, are there certain secrets that you learned from your involvement with the Masons that, to this day, if you reveal them to the world, like you're threatened that the Masons will try to punish you in some way?
Okay,
Or
good question. Okay, so the only secrets of the craft are the modes of recognition and the verbatim ritual. Okay, so I can even, what do you call it, paraphrase something. Okay, but like the verbatim ritual, like if I were to just give you a script of the ritual, that would be violating the obligation. And the modes of recognition being the tokens, the handshakes, the passwords. And
yeah,
the
that's
thing
stuff
is,
they made
all
up.
those things are online.
That's not too significant to keep secret. That's
No,
good.
one of the
Yeah.
other things is just, if somebody tells you something in confidence, you're supposed to keep it that way. Murder and treason accepted. So, like, and those things, those oath parameters change at the higher levels, but at the entered apprentice and the fellow craft level, I mean, it's just the modes of recognition and the verbatim ritual, and to not betray the trust of a fellow Mason. Like, don't get into a relationship with his female family members, and just general, like, respect things, but as far as revealing them and penalties, part of the lecture for the, I believe it was the entered apprentice degree, was afterwards they give like a slideshow and they go into detail about the blazing star and about like the symbolism of the lodge, which you can also read in much better detail online and through their own publications, especially Manly P. Hall and all that. But so they give you a history of the craft and explain some of the symbols, which is not secret. But after that lecture, they asked the new entered apprentices. I think there were 7 of us. that had got initiated that month, and they said, "Do you know the reason for the penalties? Because they are symbolic." So when we say these penalties are symbolic and nobody's going to actually mutilate or murder you, what's the point of the symbolic penalties? And nobody else raised their hand. So I raised my hand and I said, well, if you are mutilated and let's say a body part is cut off, in the ancient Hebrew and Egyptian spiritual belief systems, religions, you would not be able to be resurrected. Therefore, you're not swearing on your life, you're swearing on your eternal existence. In other words, your soul. So it doesn't matter if somebody actually kills you or not. You're essentially saying that, on pain of spiritual death, that you won't reveal the secrets. And the guys were like, the room was silent, and it looks like some of the guys got chills, and then they were like, "Yeah, he's right." So
Fucking crazy, dude.
yeah, I mean that's why Bob Marley didn't get his foot amputated when he had cancer, because the Rastas believe that too. If you're not whole, you won't be able to be reborn in the world to come. Jehovah's Witnesses believe similar things. It's an ancient Orthodox Jewish and Hebrew, and it's an ancient belief,
That scares me. I had to have a tooth extracted a week ago.
How would
Right.
the ancient Jews recognize that and still practice circumcision?
Yeah, see, that's the thing is, if you really analyze it, it falls apart, right?
I just got
Yeah,
caught up
I
on that and felt the need to ask.
Yeah, it's. What about somebody who went to war and lost a finger? I mean, come on. That's where you got to realize, okay, this is made up bullshit, right? At some level.
Yeah. I always find it strange when you start noticing spots in those beliefs where things don't exactly line up. But that's actually one I've wanted to ask Mark for a long time, but I tried to once on his show and I got cut off by the end of it.
About circumcision?
No, totally different question.
You got cut off?
Well, I guess, but no. About you said before that when you started getting into the dark occult, the Satanists and the people who are doing the various things behind the scenes, that they all more or less see self-preservation as the first principle, that your own
Right.
safety and comfort is the first and most important thing. And I've constantly wondered how they reconcile that with the fact that survival is impossible in the long run. Like,
Yeah.
you can't prevent your death. You can delay it, but you're not going to prevent it. You entered this world. The equal and opposite reaction is at some point you're going to have to leave again. And
Right.
go full transhumanist, become a cyborg, and a million years from now you're traveling through space and you collide with something you didn't have on your chart.
Well, that would be
like
that would be the left-hand path, the clivotic path, where they're trying to superimpose their ego onto reality as opposed to merge with the general order of things. So you can look at apotheosis or becoming God in different ways. These people want to create God in their image, versus you can still become God or a God by simply just aligning yourself with the divine nature within you. So you can, try to force the universe to conform to your will, which is the satanic way, or the theurgic white magic way is to realize what is divine and then just don't do anything else that's evil and you're already there. So there's a path of removal. Just remove the dross, the wheat from the chaff, and become your true divine self by eliminating what is useless and embracing what is useful. That's the way to do it. So these transhumanists, these Satanists, they don't want to do the hard work. They don't want to delay their own gratification, but they will if it's productive towards their means. But ultimately, they're very knowledgeable about the techniques of mind control, even meditation and health and sciences, but ultimately they're delusional. You know, they really are. Like, their own fear of death causes that quest for immortality that ends up becoming completely unethical. But like, they should know, and on some level they do, that they are eternal spirit souls, but for some reason they've come to this conclusion that it's still worth it to be evil.
Okay. Oh, that's all.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, are you guys hearing some sort of like buzzing sound, or is that just me?
There's a little bit.
I'm hearing it too.
I'm outside in the wind here.
I'm the culprit.
If I roll up the windows,
Oh,
let's try one thing at a time. Let's do your thing first.
oh, no worries. I was just gonna ask you, Jeff, about your journey in finding natural law, truth, etc., objective morality.
Are you still hearing a buzzing sound?
I think it's the wind coming on your head.
Yeah, it may be some sort of wind or something.
Too hot. I'll roll up these windows for a while.
Sorry.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it went away.
Your whole explanation.
Let me mute my mic and see.
Yeah, it's all good.
I might have to turn on the AC.
Okay, that.
Is that?
We'll just move on. Yeah. It's
Is
totally
that
fine.
still buzzing?
But you're still here. It is,
Yeah.
but we're not going to solve it. It's okay. So yeah, would love to hear about your journey as well, Jeff.
Okay, well, I've always observed nature. I've been interested in science fiction. I've always been curious about how life began on the planet or how it could develop in the future. And I always valued freedom, but at the same time, the psychopathic psychologists who really design society, they've created a society where people naturally fall into their mindset. I had some satanic or backwards type of thinking without even realizing it. I never considered myself a Satanist or psychopath or anything, but despite the fact that I valued freedom, I had some type of a scarcity mindset. I thought that animals eat each other, and I believed the lies that there's not enough food to go around on the world. There's too big of a population. It's not a place for all of us. Some people have to live. Some people have to die. And I hope to be on the side of the good guys and kill off the bad guys. But I actually inherently knew that people governing other people is wrong. But I figured that's the way it has to be. That's the way our society is, and I can't do anything to change that. I have to roll down these windows. Hopefully, it's not too much buzzing. It's getting really hot in here.
It stopped.
Okay, so like psychopaths, I was kind of like attracted to hierarchies. I used to watch Star Trek, and I used to admire the captain of the ship. But the first one I watched was the Next Generation.
Yep.
I like Jean-Luc Picard because he's the captain. I thought it's cool how they tried to do good in the universe and went from planet to planet, and they explored. I had some vision for humanity developing into something like that. It looked like a one world government, and I thought, oh, that's better than all these different governments fighting against each other. So I was kind of starting to admire centralized authority. But still, I imagine I didn't like laws, like saying you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. You don't own your body, like the drugs. If someone wants to do drugs, it's they own their own body, and I know it's wrong for a government to say you're not allowed to do this drug or you have to take this vaccination, etc. I thought that. Once we're not fighting war, once we're all on the same page, then at that point, we could start changing the system that we have and making it a more free world where everyone's completely free. And then I still imagine, there's probably some type of hierarchy in that system, but everyone has the chance to rise to the top. And I hope to do something like that. I actually I joined the Navy. I thought I wanted to be on a submarine. I thought that was like the most similar thing to the Star Trek ships that I admired.
Wow.
The real world Star Trek too, just as you're describing.
And you know what, I was actually proud that my country was a part of the United Nations. I really didn't know what's going on in the world. I watched the mainstream news. Even though I wanted a humanity free from government, I thought there had to be some type of government. I thought we could be at peace if we're all on one side. And I thought USA is one of the most powerful countries and it's one of the most free countries. It declared independence from the feudalism system that the world used to have. And I envision a future where USA is like the most influential country in the United Nations, or maybe it becomes the United States of the world instead of the United Nations, and we could get more free from there. When I was in there, I got to E4 right away because of the contract I signed. I did a 6-year enlistment, and I did the nuclear power program where I had to go to school for 2 years, and then after school, deploy on a sub for 4 years was the plan. What was I saying? So I had kind of a high rank for enlisted at the start. In boot camp, I was E3, and then after my first school, the electrician A school, I in the program I was in, my whole class automatically went to E4. So I was proud of myself. I had some fairly high rank for an 18-year-old, but still it bothered me that I have to salute officers and but I admired them at the same time. I wanted to get that high rank, and I was thinking I took the order follower mindset. I was thinking I can trust my government and my chain of command to only order me to do ethical things. And I'll do my part on the submarine, making the nuclear power. And, I hope we do blow up bad guys. I see the high-ranking officers with all the different ribbons on their uniform, showing that they participated in some type of war or something. And I wanted to have all those medals. And I thought it's something to be proud of. The people I'm killing are the bad guys. Even if some of them are innocent civilians, I was thinking, you know what? they've probably worked it out, so it's still the greater good. It's a few of the innocent civilians on their side dying instead of several of them on our side. And if it wasn't the greater good, they wouldn't decide that. I was willing to go along with order following and do some horrible things that I could never forgive myself for. I'm lucky someone left a roach of cannabis in my car, and it was found doing some routine searches when I was driving onto base, and I got kicked out, and I was on legal hold for a while. I went back to E1. I was marching around the base picking up cigarette butts. It was kind of like being in boot camp again, and I had my first girlfriend at that time. We broke up, and I was very depressed, and I was upset about getting kicked out, and I started getting in fights. I had a temper tantrum in the chief's office when he was yelling at me. I busted the whole thing up. I ended up going to the brig for 1 month, and I got a court-martial, and I got a other than honorable discharge, which doesn't bother me at all. It's not the worst you could get, a dishonorable, which wouldn't bother me at all, except it would limit me. Like, not that the laws are right and wrong, truly, but the fraudulent laws my government makes, if I had dishonorable, it would be like I'm a felon. I wouldn't be allowed to own a gun. And, even if they said I'm not allowed to own a gun, I've got the right to own a gun. But I'm glad that I can own a gun, and if I get pulled over with it, the cops don't think they have the right to take it away from me. And it's other than honorable under general conditions. So it's basically like I don't get any benefits, but I don't get any real problem. It's like I never joined, but I'm fortunate that I got out with a clear conscience. I never blew anybody up, and I was ready to do that.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And then, at that point, I still wasn't thinking. But I still didn't completely get it that like government's wrong. You shouldn't participate in it at all. I was thinking, yeah, the U.S. government is my enemy. They kicked me out now for something I didn't do, and yeah, I was mad at our government. And I ended up getting a DUI for having a roach of weed in my car. I was completely sober. I passed the sobriety test and everything, but I didn't know that I have the right to refuse a search. I recently got kicked out of the Navy. The cops arrested me and handcuffed me to a desk, and I was saying I don't consent, and they took my blood, and they gave me a drug DUI. I had marijuana in my system as well, like, because it stays in your system 30 days.
It's in my system right now, then. Anyway, sorry.
Every day.
Seriously.
And, I drove after drinking some beer. I was like barely over the legal limit. I got a second DUI. And I didn't do my whole DUI school, and I ended up like having a warrant all the time, and I would get arrested for warrants for like driving without a license, and what else? I don't know, some other driving related thing that I just wouldn't get taken care of. Or I think it was the DUI that like for dropping out of the DUI school, but I would get released after a couple of days. I'd wait because it was nothing serious. I'd wait till I see the judge and I'd get released, but I got sick of having my car impounded or going to jail, and I was going to go to Canada and be a deep sea fisherman. And I didn't know anyone up there. My grandfather talked me out of it. He was telling me he's so worried because I don't have any family out there. He's from Israel. So he talked me into going to a kibbutz in Israel instead of going to Canada. Because I figured like there's like 200 other countries that don't like ban me from driving a car or anything like that. So, I just wanted to go to some other country, and I was still, I didn't have the idea, like, government needs to be, like, government's total slavery, so it should be, like, not participated with or accepted at all. It should be totally rejected. I thought wherever you're going to live, you're going to participate partially by paying taxes. So, like, if you're, like, trying to fight for the side of good, like, there's nothing wrong with working for government. Like, I didn't like police, but I was thinking about becoming an Israeli citizen. I wanted to leave USA forever. To do that, I would have to go into the Israeli military, because I was already 24 years old by that time. Like, they usually have kids in the military, like from 18 to 21 or 22. The people over that age, they just have to be on the reserves for their whole life. But I would have had to go to boot camp for a few months and then do the same thing every year, I think, and just be ready to fight if they needed me.
Was this in Israel?
Yes. I started off on a kibbutz, and there was an immigrant program. I was going to school to learn Hebrew 3 days a week, and I was working 3 days a week. A kibbutz is kind of like a socialist community. The one I was on was older than the country Israel. It was early Jewish settlement. But I was working on a plastic factory. It was internally it was like socialism, but externally it was like capitalism, because the kibbutz, like, sold the products to do business with Israel, or with the whole world. I was making Tupperware and toilet seats and sending them to, like, the dollar store in USA, and sending them to Germany and all over the place. But anyway, another thing they did is they were, like, trying, like, the country wants people to sign up for several years in the military and become an officer, or get a higher pay, or take whatever type of offer they're giving you to do a bigger commitment. Like, I wasn't forced to do anything more than the reserves, but they wanted everyone to like, be in the military for as long as they're willing to, basically. So part of this immigrant program, besides having the school where they teach me Hebrew, and then it was kind of like socialism. Like, my work paid for my room and board, but I didn't make any money, and it also paid for my Hebrew school. But they also sent me to, like, a 2-week, like, shortened boot camp. It was something that mostly, like, kids did when they're, like, 17 before they go to the regular boot camp to figure out what it's like. But they required everyone living on the kibbutz go to that, so they're, I don't know, ready to fight if there's any war on the kibbutz. There's never any war on the kibbutz, but I went to that boot camp. I was wearing another military uniform, and, like, learning how to follow orders in another language, and I was thinking, that's a cool thing, and, maybe I'll become citizen and join the military. And I ended up coming home. I still had the warrants for driving without a license, and I got arrested in the airport, but I got let out after, like, 2 days again. And as soon as I saw the judge, and I thought, like, I was kind of homesick. I was happy to be home. I was there for a year. I actually left the kibbutz after 6 months, and I got a tree cutting job. And it was another situation where I was, like, working for room and board, but I was making a little bit of money as well. But I'd been in Israel for a year. I kind of missed home, and, like, I was happy to see my friends and family, and, like, I realized, like, I just decided to like follow through with the hoops the government wanted me to join and do the DUI school, and like I came back to living in USA when I was 25 years old. But I started to realize at that point, like because I put some more thought into it, and I started to like pay attention to politics a little bit, and like I realized that like all government really is slavery, and like it's not physical slavery; it's done through mind control. They don't keep us in cages and whip us and make us work. They get us to follow the rules through through threats or through rewards or some type of mental manipulation, and so we don't even recognize that it's slavery. And like since I was about 25, I started to just kind of realize that government shouldn't be participated with at all. I didn't want to vote, but I didn't really think I could do anything about it. I thought like I'm just gonna like mind my own business. All this bad stuff's going on, and I'm just gonna try to just survive despite the condition of humanity. I decided I don't like politics. I just stay out of it, and later on, when I was about 30 years old, I went to high school in Fremont, California. I was living in Union City. It was kind of a coincidence. I went to the liquor store, and like someone asked me, "Is your name Jeff?" And like he looked familiar. He went to high school with me. We were both living in the next city over, but we're neighbors. And I hung out with my neighbor a couple of times, and like my old high school friend I haven't seen since high school. And I found out that he's a Freemason, and actually on my dad's side, I think my dad's grandfather was a Freemason, and like he was inviting me to join the Masons. He was saying like he's sure he could get me in. He wanted me to go to this Masonic retirement home where they have like some type of a lodge meeting where they can invite guests, and then I should go to that meeting and then ask or something. I need to meet the people, and he was saying he could get me in for sure. And I was thinking about it. Like I had already kind of not liked hierarchies. I realized like hierarchies are wrong. The system of order following is wrong. But it's the idea of unity and being part of something is still sometimes a good feeling. Like I'd like to see humanity united under this situation of sovereignty, but anyway, like I kind of considered it, but I was thinking like I'm going to be contributing to it in some way, paying dues, and I really don't know what they're all about. I was thinking about joining mainly because I want to know the secrets they have to offer. Do they know about the aliens, or like what do they know that everyone else doesn't know? I thought about it, but I ended up just like not going to that party. I changed my mind at the Masonic place, and I like. Yeah, for one, like the men and women are separate. I don't like that. Like, why is it only a men's club? And they have other female like Masonic clubs, but yeah, I didn't want to contribute to something that I didn't know like what it was doing. And I didn't like the idea of being part of a group and having to follow the rules. Like, if I'm joining this group, I'm giving my word that I will follow their rules, and like I'm kind of free. At that point, I was valuing like my independence and freedom, and not wanting to be part of something and follow rules at all. But yeah, I pretty much went through my life since probably around the age of like yeah, I was about 30 when I declined an offer to become a Freemason, but probably around since I was 25, I realized that all government was wrong. I valued self-ownership, and I thought that every living thing has that right. No one should govern someone else, but I figured there's nothing I could do about it. Like the world's going to develop the way it's going to develop, and I had already kind of had an idea of how nature and the universe work and what God is. I realized that God's a living thing, that everything's part of. It's a living environment. And Darin, you were mentioning how we're all God, or we could all be God. We're all part of God, but I think the Earth is a living thing. But it's part of the solar system, which is also a living thing. It's part of the galaxy, which is alive, and it doesn't have a face and hands and feet. We don't recognize it, but it's got some consciousness in some way. I think the galaxy has all the information of all life on all planets that are alive in it. But I think the universe is a living thing, and it's part of a multiverse of different timelines or different ways universes can exist, and that whole multiverse is a living thing. But it could be part of some bigger thing. It could be like a subatomic particle that's part of a cell, that's part of a greater living thing. And I think how big it is. You could zoom out to infinity. It's that giant, and you could zoom in. You'd probably find universes inside the atoms as well. To something that's living on. That's living in some micro universe that's inside the atom and in the cell in my body. I might be as many scales as it could envision. To something on such a small scale within me. I might be the biggest God that they could visualize, but no, I'm not God alone. I'm not God externally within the universe that I'm in. Every other life form in this universe has just as much free will as I do. But I'm part of this earth, and and I'm part of this universe, and so is everyone else. I think we're all part of God, or you could consider yourself your own God if you want to, but just know that no, you're not the God of the universe or God of other individual and other life forms on this planet with you. You're there's a reason I started talking about my vision of the universe and everything, and so the Satanists before Christianity labeled them Satanists because of the Christian evil devil Satan. It's been around for thousands of years. This is some stuff I started to learn from listening to Mark Passio. I found his work probably around the time of the pandemic. They're the force of involution and entropy and decay and chaos and contraction instead of expansion. And there's that force that opposes that, the force of nature and evolution and order. And every life form has free will and contributes to one thing or the other thing or nothing. And what I was doing before, just trying not to be involved with government or anything, what a waste of a life, just living life to entertain yourself. Why not be part of this living environment that I love, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And why not work for the evolution? And Mark Passio is trying to do something. It sounds like a long shot, but I don't have a better idea. We have access to the media, which is like a modern day like standard of literacy. Instead of reading and writing, it's a way to reach the most people, and maybe we can turn humanity around. And like when the pandemic was going on and the Great Reset is attempted, which I think probably happened before. I think a Great Reset happens before every Dark Ages, where they could rewrite history and try to reform society again. But I don't want that to happen. But I think they do the Great Reset to start over if their plan isn't coming through. They also have like these other things, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2040, where they want to have microchips in all of our brains. And I see it is becoming something like the Borg. And like it could be real bad within our lifetime. So we might as well like take a shot to make it like really good within our lifetime. Get like totally decentralized government and mind control to the individual level. No national sovereignty. Every individual needs to be sovereign. And sovereignty is a beautiful thing. It's an internal monarchy where everyone owns themselves and they're the one ruler of themselves, and the external anarchy, which is the non-aggression principle along with the self-defense principle. And if you're not going to be the internal monarch and like control yourself to where you do practice the external anarchy, which basically avoids violating rights. If you are going to violate rights, then someone has the right to control you through defense. Force against violence is defense. And people have the right to use force against you if you're violating others' rights. But to avoid that, you need to practice the internal monarchy, external anarchy. It's the situation of sovereignty. And we might as well like use the internet to do this work and try to turn things around. I was watching a YouTube video with Aaron and Melissa Dykes. I remember their name. It's a couple. I forget the name of their YouTube channel.
Didn't they do that documentary, Minds of Men?
I think so.
Truth Stream?
Truth Stream Media. Thank you. That's the YouTube channel. But
Love it.
They were talking about the free speech and like how in Britain right now, like they're even threatening to come to America and arrest American citizens who insult the monarchy. And yeah, I'm going to say fuck you, monarchy.
Let's all say fuck the monarchy right now, so that we can be banned.
Like I've got a gun for self-defense against tyrants. Like, yeah, I'm glad that the government that rules over this area, which has no right to do, actually acknowledges the right for every individual to defend themselves, or they claim they do. I live in California, where the Second Amendment's really violated, but no, that does not come from the government. All rights come from nature. Rights are actions that don't cause harm. And like, yeah, if I'm not hurting anyone, if I'm only using it for defense, like, I've got every right to do whatever I want with a gun or anything else. It's my own property. But
I think Curt. Okay, I think Curt wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just commenting on the state of self-defense in the U.S. because the FBI and others still do things like warrants, right? Which,
Curt, I really have a hard time hearing you. Can you guys hear him?
I think it might be because of the wind from your window. Yeah, sorry.
Can you start over? I didn't hear you.
So I was saying that in the U.S., a bunch of your agents practice no-knock warrants, which, if you have castle doctrine, where people are entitled to defend themselves if someone breaks into their home, well, if up in the night you hear people stomping up the stairs, and you grab your rifle to defend yourself because someone's intruded in your home, suddenly you're in a shootout with federal. They haven't announced themselves what they are. So functionally, what those are essentially murder warrants, because at very worst, what they can actually do is just shoot you and then drop a gun on your body and open fire on us first. And there's very little anyone can do otherwise, right? So, like, on paper, the U.S. practically denies you right to defend yourself, but in reality, go look at what happened with the Ruby Bridge, right? Like, it only actually exists where the whole power to be to account. And for decades on end, that hasn't happened.
I'm sorry, Curt. I was able to hear Geri and Darin clearly. You're cutting out on my end for some reason. I heard you were talking about castle doctrine vaguely, but I couldn't hear specifically what you were talking about. I'm sorry. Could you two hear me?
I think Jeff, if you mute yourself, you might be able to hear, because I think the wind from there you go. Oh wait.
Yeah, there's feedback coming through your mic.
Yeah, that's way clearer now.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Thumbs up if you can.
Yeah.
Could you two hear me when I was speaking previously?
Jeff, the wind from Jeff's audio did cut in sometimes. Okay. I got the gist, but yeah, if you want to repeat.
I'll quickly go back through it one more time. But essentially, when you have government agencies practicing no-knock warrants, where their agents will break into your house in the middle of the night without announcing themselves, combined with castle doctrine, what you've actually set up is justification for the government to murder people in their homes and then write it off as them shooting at agents who broke in.
Right.
And the government doesn't really recognize these rights they claim they do when you look at their practices. That's why I brought up Ruby Ridge, where they chase a guy into the middle of nowhere, then shoot his teenage son in the back and blow his wife's head off in the doorway while she's holding her infant son. And I think the only thing they had on him was they suspected he owned one shotgun that had the wrong length of barrel. That was it.
Oh my God.
Right.
And like, you're living in the middle of nowhere, your neighbors are miles away. Who are you even going to hurt with that alleged prohibited firearm, right? It's all about control. If there's one thing a cult hates more than anything, it's an apostate. So the moment you try to walk out and separate yourself from the cult of government, they have to make an example of you.
Wasn't it that he refused to cooperate with some kind of ATF sting?
There was the original, we think you have a shotgun that's got a barrel too long, we demand you do this. No, I'm not going to do what you say, piss off. And that's where you got into this standoff with them, right? So if you're speaking, Jeff, you've got to unmute yourself or we can't hear you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I can't hear you. I'll mute myself after I say this. I don't give a shit about my government or any other government. I recognize my own right and everyone else's right for free speech and the right to defend themselves. And I do insult the British government. They look like clowns with their uniforms, especially the judges with the wigs. And I have a right to defend myself, and that's exactly what I'll do if some British cop comes over here and tries to arrest me. And quickly, I want to finish up about that video with Truth Stream Media. They were talking about like how Britain claims to have the right to violate rights of their subjects, and they were talking about their old documents from like the 15 or 1600s where they were claiming the king can do no wrong, and that's so obnoxious. Like Aaron Dykes was like shocked they could like make such a declaration, but it makes sense because I understand the true meaning of sovereignty, and they had it wrong. They thought they could have the national sovereignty, and the centralized authority is the sovereign of the nation. They thought they were the sovereign, and they didn't believe in self-ownership. They didn't think that their subjects owned themselves. They thought they owned the people who lived in their country, and just like some guy was criticizing a woman for having tattoos on her face, and I was telling him like her face is her property, and like she's the one who says what right and wrong is on her property. Like,
Right.
so she's got the right to tattoo her face as much as she wants. Like, all rights are actually property rights because we all own ourselves. We own our potential actions, and we own things that we acquired without hurting anybody. Now like a simple way to understand rights is like you violate rights if you do harm, but who is to say what is harmful and what's not? The owner of the property, and your own body is always your property, but the owner of the property is the one who has the right to say what is correct and incorrect, or right and wrong to that property. But if the king owns the whole government, that they accept that the king owns them, that's how. Yeah, the king can do no wrong if he wants to behead people or violate their rights in whatever way. It's not wrong if they're his property, but it is totally wrong to think that living beings could be the property of other living beings. That's like the whole fraud that allows like the slavery system of the world to exist. And anyway, maybe that's enough of my introduction. I'm going to mute myself again. One quick question. When I've been talking and unmuted, could you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yes.
You probably just need a headset, either Bluetooth or even a wired headset. That'll cut out a lot of the noise.
I'm just happy that we're all just like on camera, like speaking. So I'm just happy that that's happening. I wanted to kind of bring us together because, the reason why I sort of invited each of you is because I feel like we're all on the same page about our understanding of why government, the legal system, authority in general is slavery. And, Curt and I talked a lot about that in our previous episode. And Jeff shared his thoughts on that subject. Darin, did you want to add anything to that specific talking point?
I think Jeff, you've got a great grasp on it. Curt, I'm sure you do too. I'm actually going to watch that tonight on my night shift when I have some time, which I will. And I would love to meet regularly. I think we know a lot more than we think we know, just because when we're in a group where we can discuss that, I think it brings out all those things that we may not have been able to talk about, but we do know, and it helps us polish things, our rhetoric, right? So practicing, at some point just doing it, right, and then refining. But
sorry, Jeff, do you mind muting yourself? Because I'm having trouble hearing Darin. Sorry. Thanks.
It's an amazing experience, and I think like we can go a lot deeper. And broader too, and I'm excited to do the great work, and I just didn't even know if I would ever be ready to be on camera, and then we started talking, and I'm like, of course, man, I'm just talking about things that I think about all the time.
Totally.
That's no preparation really required, right?
You've done that already. Yeah.
So I dig it, Jeff. You'll get. I love what you had to say about your experiences. Being a global force for good. we're hit with these things. We're the good guys. We're the good guys. We have rights, but it's, if you've all seen the Jones Plantation, it's all just shit to make you feel good. Yes, you do have rights, but like in practice, you don't. When it comes to government. But yeah, it's been great to get together, and I think we can do this on quite a regular basis.
Well, even the very concept of licensing. If someone can license you, whether you are or aren't allowed to own something and when you may or may not use it, functionally, in order to do that, they had to have claimed ownership of you. Because if they don't
Correct.
own you in the first place, how can they possibly dictate your actions?
I've
Heard
found
that the word
myself
register
starting.
in Latin means under the king.
Yes,
Yes,
Rex
well,
King.
and that's something going into some of my natural law reading, or no, common law reading, was that part of the reason the police have the authority to tow your car away in the first place is because you registered it. So, like the provincial vehicle registry, when you registered your vehicle, you placed it under the care of the province. So they have the authority to move it on you.
But not doing so is probably also a crime, right?
Well, and so some of the people up here in Canada I've been talking to who fight a similar fight, though they're much more just on the legal front than the natural law front. They actually have a private trust that they've registered their vehicle to,
Okay.
so that when the police take it, they can go after them and sue them for violating that trust's property rights.
Sure. But at the end of the day, they can always use the ultimate, which is the appeal to force, right? And just use force against you and your property, and then retroactively apply justifications through obfuscation and case law, and ultimately, force backed with the religious imposition of we're the government and we can do it, and then everyone else will be either sympathizing with the government or scared shitless because they don't want to get fucking killed.
Well, and that's, I'm completely aware it only works to the point where people are willing to recognize
I
it.
dig it, but the law, I try to tell a coworker friend of mine, you're using this system to negate the system, but it's better. It's better than doing nothing. I mean, if they get annoyed and they leave you alone, awesome, fine.
And this is actually a point I brought up with Geri last week, is that like here in Canada, if 5% of the population started doing that, however, the whole system would become. That's a small fraction of our population.
And what do you think the response of the government would be? Well, scrap those things and force it, or let it go?
What I was saying to her was that it would just become unenforceable due to numbers. Up here in Canada, we only have 72,000 police officers total. And that's everyone. If you're wearing blue doing the job, you're a police officer, right? So all of the office workers, everything, that's not 72,000 cops on the beat, that's 72,000 total. 5% of our population would be 2 million people. Just if 5% of the population took the license plate off of their car and continued to drive it anyway, the amount of court summons and handouts would clog the system. In the first week, you'd be getting summons for 10 years from now. It would be so backed up.
So it's the Wizard of Oz, right? It's the man, the Deus Ex Machina. Like, we think, oh, look at all this apparatus of government, but like you pointed out, even if just a couple million people pulled out, their resources would be like, ugh, and like, what if half of the people, that pay taxes just stopped? You know what I mean? Like, everything would come to a grinding halt. But it's just like nobody wants to be that person. You got 100 good guys and you got a bad guy with a revolver. No one wants to be one of the 6 that gets shot.
I'll be one of the 6. Let's just do it. Fuck it.
I'm Spartacus.
Yeah, but that's...
I'll be the 6. One of the 6.
That is where we're at.
That's a bad number. Let's pick another 7. Okay, sorry.
It is the number of a man.
Yeah, it's... it's that easy. It can be overcome in a single day if people choose. Like here in Canada, if everyone who supported the Ottawa convoy and felt that what was done to them was unjust just decided to not pay their property tax next month, the colossal fallout from that would be heard worldwide. Everything would fall apart that month. But
Yeah.
it requires people, again, like you were saying, not wanting it to happen to you. It requires people to look internally and say, I know this is what's right, and I know it's going to put me in harm's way, and I'm gonna do it anyway. And
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people I've met in my life who are at that point, I can count on one hand. It's they're so few and far between. I'm not holding
We're
my
trying to
breath.
change that.
I know
Right.
we are, but at the exact present moment that we're currently speaking, we're not there right now. We can
Sure.
theoretically change it, but
Aside from teaching natural law, I think we need to get a lot of people actually take real action in the form of being police auditors. Because if police want to go violate rights, they'd have a hard time doing it. If like every time they pull over a car, if several cars of armed people who are not cops show up and they tell the cop, we're going to make sure you're not violating anyone's rights. You're not going to kidnap him and make him go in your car. You know, like the stuff that the cops get away with and do that's wrong. Like they'll have a hard time doing it if people stop them. If 5% of the population knows, but just talks on the internet, like the cops will still go around violating rights. But you know, if there's if the cops are actually met with force, and the government's met with force in ways, like yeah, they're not to do anything about it. So
I think in England right now it's illegal to.
We could still get arrested, but we need to defend each other from getting arrested.
I think France and England right now made it illegal to say things that erode public trust in the government, including the healthcare system. I think Canada also has proposed C93, like internet safety and misinformation bills. But basically,
Yep.
if you say something that the government doesn't like, they want to be able to arrest you for that alone, like by saying you shouldn't trust the National Health Service or you shouldn't trust the CDC. That alone, there's seriously influential people trying to make that a crime.
well,
So to erode faith in the law enforcement in some jurisdictions right now, because they speak the law and it is what they say it is, because they're jurists, they want to make that a crime. So we should be doing this stuff before they get even more entrenched and more powerful. People will lose things. It will be dangerous, but essentially it comes down to it'll be a lot easier for everybody if the public itself realizes a police state is a bullshit reality. We're all going to die. We might as well live while we're here.
Yeah.
People are starting to see it very much in England right now because they're using those laws where the people who are protesting the immigration now, they're being arrested and they're having the court case in like 1 or 2 days after the arrest, and they're handing out really heavy sentences. Like I think
Yes.
this week a man was given 20 months in prison, and what he was charged with was saying, "Who the F is Allah?" That's all he
Wow.
said. He was yelling, "Who the F is Allah?" And he
Wow.
was arrested and given 20 months in prison for that.
Aloha snack bar.
So you're
Right.
in danger doing the great work in Canada, aren't you, Curt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm up here in
Yeah.
Ontario.
Well, thanks for doing it for the whole world, despite whatever threat. It's good you're standing up to it. Hey, I want to clarify one thing from like my personal awakening journey. Like one big thing that I had to recognize is like all these false us versus them, divide and conquer things are completely false. Like when I was in Israel, I talked to several Jews and Muslims who, like, Muslims didn't hate Jews and Jews who didn't hate Muslims. They didn't want to fight the war, but the Israeli government and the Hamas, they both get rich off of weapons contracts, and they get money and power by perpetuating the war. But all of these things, like black versus white, or gay versus straight, or Jew versus Muslim, or USA versus China, all of these things are wrong. And like I'm starting to like hear about some atrocities the Israeli government's doing, and I was talking to some Americans about it, and they're saying, well, all those Palestinian kids, they're brainwashed to have like some Nazi jihadist mentality. They want to kill Americans and Jews, and they justify Israel like blowing up little kids even, and like that's pure cowardice for the grown-ups to kill kids and kill innocent civilians and say they've got this bad mentality. Guess what? I had a bad mentality. I joined the military. Whoever says that has a bad mentality, us versus them, saying like the innocent people need to be killed. But you know, like I'm fortunate I got out of the military before I ever killed anyone, before I really took action on my bad mentality. And those kids, like, even if they aren't brainwashed, many of them aren't, but even if they are, they can always change their mind before they've done something wrong. But if you're assuming they're going to do something wrong, like go attack the innocent people because they're part of some other government, then you're the one initiating force. Like the one initiating the force is the one doing the violence, and that's what needs to be defended against. So I want to clarify, even though I was ready to join the Israeli army at one point, like I don't hate Muslims. Like one of my best friends that I've known since junior high is Muslim, I just wanted to clarify that. It's very important to recognize all these false us versus them. That's like that gives people like the fear and the desperation where they're begging for the government to protect them. It's like a false boogeyman. Like we're their boogeyman and they're our boogeyman. And like that like belief in that is part of what's necessary for the government to do to our minds to make us controllable by them.
Right. It's the whole like problem, reaction, solution. Like we have this war, us versus them. The solution is government. Yeah. I just wanted to check in. I know Darin has a time constraint. Did you guys want to keep going with the convo, or how are we? Where are we? How are we feeling?
No, I have some things I need to take care of around 5 as well.
Okay,
so
sounds
I'll have
good.
to be off.
No problem.
Me and Darin talked for a long time. We didn't get to hear from the two of you about your personal awakening journey so much. We can focus on that the next time.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Jeff, I think, was saying that he wanted to hear from you and I about our awakening journeys. So,
Okay.
I was just going to add that I think, in general, the way this fear system continues to work is that people just are afraid of like death. They're afraid of putting themselves out there. They're afraid of being punished. It's all self-preservation thinking. And it's like in my own journey with plant medicine, I'm truly not afraid of death. And I'm willing to go to jail. I'm willing to lose my kids. I'm willing to be killed, because it's all bullshit anyways.
Fear of death, the beginning of slavery. And I sincerely believe we pick up where we left off spiritually in the next life. So if we bitch out here, we're going to be a bitch in the next one,
Fuck yeah.
And it's not just fear of death. It's fear of consequences and responsibility entirely. Like if you start looking at how litigious we've become, where the coffee shop down the street has to write on their coffee cups, warning content is hot, because if they don't, someone's going to spill it on themselves and then sue them because you didn't warn me that hot coffee is hot. That the act of doing that is demanding that other people take responsibility for your safety. And in doing that, you're also justifying the machine of government exists to enforce that responsibility for you on others.
Right.
So that desire to completely abdicate all responsibility for your own behavior is a big part of what's guiding the current mindset.
Totally. Love it. Darin, Jeff, did you have anything to add to what Curt just said?
I want to get together and talk a lot more often. I do got to cut out of here in a minute, though, because I got to take care of something before work and go feed a friend's cat.
It was nice meeting both of you.
Nice meeting you, too. I'll go ahead and watch that. I know you posted that chat with you and Curt, so I'm going to watch that tonight.
Yay.
Okay.
Let's do this more often.
Yeah, I'll be interested
sure.
to see what you think of it.
Thanks for sharing, Jeff. Good to hear from another Trekkie, you know.
Family in Wyoming. Once I get back to California, I think my audio issues will be a lot better. But,
oh, I didn't realize you were out there. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yep.
Well, yeah, thanks everyone. I just keep being active on the discussion boards for our class, because that's what inspired me to get you guys on here, because I love the way you guys are thinking. And yeah, we'll do this again. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that, Geri.
Bye.
Bye, guys.